Hey, this is John Enholt for PokersLand.com. I'm going to record a 246 Max video in our hand replayer today. This is from a session earlier today. Um, Actually, just recorded it live, but the audio didn't come out very well, so I'm going to redo it in the hand replayer. Basically, when I first post here, I don't know anything about my opponents, but I'm going to give a little background because the one big advantage of the hand replayer is we can really pause and talk about situations a lot, but one of the disadvantages is it's hard to really make, I think, a lot of the reads of real time, knowing what's going on. So I'm just going to give a little bit of feedback about what I gathered from my opponents by the time I was, getting comfortable in the session. This opponent immediately here on my right is probably one of the more like solid regular tags at the table. Probably him and this trade by day are the only kind of taggish, maybe regular. I'm not too sure on this guy because he's a little bit more on the passive side. Not very good, maybe a marginal winner, hard to say. And this guy was very loose, very bad with his pre-flop play. Um, a little more reasonable post-flop. This guy was probably the biggest fish at the table, and this guy here was definitely probably a long-term loser as well at the game, but was a lot more on the aggressive, kind of towards semi-loose aggressive numbers. Was a little more reasonable post-flop though as well. So that's just kind of the breakdown before we start here. And obviously I'm going to fold Jack 6, and that's one thing. This guy was always definitely raising a position, and the interesting thing about, I guess, this particular session was that there was definitely a lot of multi-way raised pots, so for these limits, that was a little abnormal, I think. I just picked a really good game, apparently. Here, even though, at this point I don't really know too much about this guy, ace 4, I'm only second hand at the table. I want to raise and find out if he's going to start playing back at me or calling me and stuff like that while I'm positioned. So that's a perfectly fine hand to check that out. And obviously he folds. Jack 8 though, I will just let this hand go right from the start because I don't really know how this guy's. I still don't really know how these guys are playing yet, and I just raised a hand, so 8-5 obviously going to fold to under the gun raise. And I'll try and pause in certain spots where I was picking up on just like betting patterns and things like that. Raise from the cutoff and a mini raise, um, and his opponent makes a very small bet into a pretty wide open texture here. King Jack also, usually when get a little more accustomed to the table and know what's going on. This is a perfectly fine hand to open with. It just really is dependent on your opponents. But I'm already seeing, even though only after a couple hands, that these guys are tending to be a little bit more on the loose side. So I'm folding this to begin with. I want to at least establish an image somewhat so I get some kind of credibility before I'm just coming in there into pots. Again, another multi-way raised pot. Pretty dry board. Um, you know, one flush draw basically, and this guy bet 42 into, I believe that was a 50, yeah. So that's something initially right away when I'm playing these kinds of hands I know, and he got a call. Because I want to know what that bet means. That's kind of on the larger range of a C bet, so I want to know, is that a hand or is that not, and know what to contrast it against. So he completely slows down, and he shows ace 4 here. Uh, and this is the kind of stuff you want to note right away too. If I showed you this lifetime recordings, I'm making tons of notes in this particular spot right away, knowing this guy's calling this kind of hand, from the cutoff from a middle position raiser who came in with ace 10, which, is perfectly fine. Um, but, he really shouldn't be in this pot in my, even though he has position, he still has kind of this loose guy and stuff like that behind him. And, calling a flop bet is fine, but and showing down obviously probably as the best hand. He's not. He probably, I wouldn't assume, think that he's going to get some kind of mid pair hand to fold there either. So and an overbet, so I want to know that's probably weak. Usually when you see that, it's usually weak. Sometimes you have classic overbetters that just bet strong hands, all the time, overbet, or they overbet just everything. Look at that, another multi-way raise pot. And this is something else you want to note. That's the second time we've seen him do that, and now he checks. So maybe with that other board texture and what was going on, that means I'm weak. I just want to take a cheap stag. I have a draw. So he checks, and we unfortunately don't get to see the hand, but this guy had a straight. 8-10, I'm not going to, oh, well, excuse me. I guess I will take a flop. I already know, I'm already seeing that this guy's pretty fishy, so I don't mind coming into pots in position and limp pot. I don't really need to raise or anything. And I should back up here real quick. Again, see, this continuation bet was a little bit on the smaller side ratio-wise. So now we want to see, because this is now a contrast, this is what you should note when you're playing. Okay, now does this mean that he has a stronger hand? Ace king, ace jack, what's going on? I mean, it is a pretty draw heavy board, granted. Another pretty good sized bet, and now, oh, I meant to pause that. And a roughly half size pot bet, because if he has something like, which more than likely has ace king here, and I'm pretty sure I didn't see the hand yet, but he wants to see if he can squeeze value, obviously, from this guy could have so many things, but likely two pair or something. And he calls, and we see a lower straight here, I guess. So right away, there you go. Probably a slightly smaller size ratio means I have at least top pair or better. So we're gonna, continue to note that stuff. Most people at these limits will have that obvious of a betting toe. 30 into a 44 in a paired board. Something else you want to make note, and I just usually write what the ratio is and what the player did. So and again, now I'm seeing that I make so many multi-way raise pots and stuff like that. Immediately, I can tell you that I'm thinking I'm gonna sit back a little bit and just try and pick some of these guys off. I don't need to do too much. This is gonna be an easy table to just catch some hands, get into some pots into position. I don't need to push the action by any means. For example, if this guy raised with ace-10, I'm not going to do anything here, even though I know I'm probably still beating his range because he just likes to raise in position. So I'm perfectly happy just to check this hand against this kind of opponent. I mean, yeah, I'm still probably ahead of his range too, but again, I'm going to sit back and kind of more or less let the chips fall into my lap. 10-7, I'm not going to complete though, out of position. Queen 9, another situation. I don't like raising these kind of. I mean, he's close to full stack, but no need. These guys, they don't tend to fold. You'll just end up getting yourself in bad spots, and you might feel committed to bluff. Yeah, and it's actually more positive expected value if you just look for the good spots with the big drawing hands and things to play in position. So that was pretty badly played. I mean, I guess apparently, I'll go back and look at this, but you know, that's something I believe I noted right away too. King high board, I want to know how someone's betting. That's near pot size because I don't think this is taking out rake here, which it does on the site, but it's going to show it all right here. And you get a quick call again, and then I believe he picks up a pair, so now he bets half pot size bet on the turn. And again, a lot of people, or I've said this before in lots of other videos, tend to bet more towards this range, but sometimes, depending on the strength of their hand, it'll be 2/3, 3/4, and so on and so on. So, you just want to note again that stuff. And since, this is a pretty connected board now, and maybe he's hoping to get, since he doesn't have much left here, just value from a naked king. So I guess it's not horrible, but